So I've always been somebody to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm always capable of putting myself in the same mindset that they are. Try to see where they're coming from. Why is it that they're being mean, or why is it that they did the thing that they did? Anytime I could do so, it's almost as if I can feel what they're feeling. I have a sort of kind of compassion for them, regardless of how they treat me. And sometimes I wonder if that is a good or bad thing. Part of me thinks that it's good to be compassionate. Part of me thinks that it provides me a lot of peace of mind, that I don't have to fight back with ego whenever I get hurt or something happens and I'm misunderstanding a situation and I end up projecting or fighting back. Instead, I can try to put myself in their situation and come at it with a sense of understanding and compassion. And that provides me a lot of peace of mind in most situations. But is that just complacency? Is that just the fear of speaking up? Or is it actually beneficial? I wanted to tell a story today about a coworker of mine years ago when we were working the same sales job. She had this habit of barging into my sales, taking my sales essentially. Whenever I would spend time with a particular customer, she would just barge in, take my sale, and upsell my sale. And one day, she did that, and then she came up to me and stuck out her tongue at me, and I got pissed. Like, I full on flew into a frenzy. I got so pissed. I lashed back at her and I yelled at her, something that I don't do. And I said, "Don't fucking do that shit to me again." And she got upset because, in her perspective, what she said is that, "Well, Alex, I'm just trying to sell the most amount of things for the store. I'm just trying to do things that benefit the store. This isn't personal." And for somebody like me, who's a lot more sensitive, I got really hurt by that because to me, that shows a sign of disrespect. But in her mind, she didn't see it that way. It wasn't personal at all. She was just trying to make the sale to benefit the store. In that moment, or well, a few days afterwards, as I was mulling over the situation, I realized that this particular colleague of mine, she got her validation from the amount of sales that she would make. She would get a sense of fulfillment and purpose by the number that goes up on the screen. She would get a sense of fulfillment from managers and bosses above us that would say that she was doing a good job. Whereas for me, I didn't care about that at all. I really couldn't give a shit. And when I realized this, I was able to kind of peg myself down a little bit, if that makes sense. I was able to put aside my ego and give her what it is that she wanted. And I don't know if this makes me sound like an asshole or if it makes me sound compassionate, but ever since that day, I realized that I didn't need to take it serious. I didn't need to compete with my colleague or my friend who then later became my friend, because I realized how different we were and how different we worked. And once I realized this, I was able to kind of make workplace a more peaceful work environment for me. And so because I was able to be compassionate towards her rather than just be mad at her and lash out at her for a misunderstanding, or not even just a misunderstanding, but a different way that she functions, which is different from me, rather than being upset and lashing out at her, I was able to reel it in and really understand why it is that she felt like that. And she gets a lot of purpose from competing with other people. And I don't. I am not competitive at all. If somebody starts becoming competitive with me, I'm automatically like, all right, you take it. I don't care. Whatever it is, just take it. This is not worth it. The stress of competition is not worth whatever the fuck you want. So you take it. I really don't care. That's my type of personality. So I was able to reel that back in and look at her and just be like, you know what? Just It's fine. It's fine. I get it. And in a way, because of that, because I was able to kind of reel it back in and not project my emotions onto her because I was hurt by a presupposition that I had of her, I was able to kind of recollect my thoughts and work for the benefit of my own self, my own true self, not the ego self, the self that values harmony, that values um, comfort, that values being in an environment that is non hostile. And as I'm thinking back on this situation, I think to myself, did I sacrifice part of myself? Did I run away from confrontation when I was presented with it? Am I a coward for providing this compassion towards this individual? And part of me says yes, too. On one hand, it could be a good thing to have compassion towards people that you might not understand their perspective. And this doesn't mean to hide yourself back or not speak up about how you feel. It's not at all that. It's just balancing what you value versus what the other individual values in a particular situation. In the workplace, I realized that our values were quite different. And so I was able to kind of reel back my emotions in, learn about the other individual, and know how I can best maneuver the situation with compassion and kindness towards the other person and have a more egalitarian workplace. And you might be thinking I'm a coward. You might be thinking that I ran away from confrontation. You might be thinking that I'm a pussy, that I'm a bitch, that you know, I'm a coward. And part of me would say, yeah, probably. But for me, the state of mind of being at peace is so much more important than anything else. I don't care to argue with people for the sake of proving my point. Because at the end of the day, who am I? There is no right point, there is no truth. There is my truth and there's that individual's truth. And there's no point in arguing with somebody who would just continue to argue. And when you recognize that some people are like that, when you start recognizing the patterns of people and how they are, you start to kind of figure out the ways in which you can kind of interact with those people, especially in situations that you don't want to be in. This isn't to say with like friends and stuff like that, but more in situations that you kind of have to be in. On one hand, I think that compassion is a good thing. Being compassionate, being understanding, being empathetic to other people's lives, putting yourself in their shoes, seeing things from their side is important. And that's something that I do with every interaction. I'm able to kind of see where everybody's coming from. And sometimes because of that, I shoot myself in the foot. Because if I understand anybody, how can I fight for myself? So I think it has its goods and its bads. I think for me, it's about figuring out what is the most important thing that you want to fight for. For me, that's peace. That's harmony. And that's within every environment that I'm in. If for you it's anything else, then all of life is just miscommunications and misunderstandings that we're trying to navigate. But sometimes I think that we need a little bit more compassion to dwindle a little bit our egos. Because I remember in that moment when I felt that anger and that hatred inside of me when I lashed out at her, I felt like shit. It was not a good feeling. Some people feel good when they lash out. For me, I felt like absolute shit. And that's because it wasn't my true self that was fighting back. It was my ego that was hurt because I wasn't good enough. Even though that wasn't the case at all, even though she might not think that I'm good enough or bad enough or whatever, in that moment, when she did that thing, when she stole my sale, my ego was hurt because it made it seem like I wasn't good enough. And so it's all about trying to find the ways in which you can be understanding in miscommunications. And for me, something that helps is to be compassionate, even when people aren't, or even when you think that they aren't being compassionate towards you. I always like to look at people with the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise, just for my own peace of mind. And maybe that helps me understand people. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe that makes me a pussy. But all I know is that in this world, we need a lot more empathy and we need a lot more compassion. In a world that is so individualistic, that is so focused on making sure everybody gets what they want, me, give me this, give me that. I think it's good to put ourselves in other people's shoes. At least once in a while. A little bit. Okay. That's it for today. This is just my opinion, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. I don't know anything. I'm just a goober on the internet. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.